Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we get to listen to the wonderful words of Quo. Quo being a representative of a social memory complex that consists of multiple social memory complexes from what is called the Confederation, which is a part of the raw material. It's essentially a channeled work from a higher dimensional or density entity that carries wisdom in service to others to help them on their path and the planet. And the information is very interesting. You can take what you will of it. My previous episodes have really unveiled some amazing, simple philosophy from Quo that is very powerful. Today, we're going to talk about things like psychedelics and meditation and the power of the now through a variety of different questions over several different sessions. And some of these I think you're really going to like. First question begins with, there are two statements that caught my attention. First, Quo says, those who are willing to use a crutch in order to vault themselves upward into the light, whether the crutch be drugs or magical rituals or whatever occult sciences may be used as a gadget, have literally pulled themselves up to a place where they may not have worked for and they may not be ready. A later quote says, thus it may be seen that those who by any means other than natural move themselves to transformation must needs be responsible for that which has been gained long after the crutch has been thrown away. For several years I have been considering these concepts as I might relate to a particular metaphysical technology. Very recently, I've been given the opportunity to enhance this technology. Also, very recently, my wife has faced a serious illness, which has forced me to realize at a deeper emotional level how important it is to let everyone find their own path of light. Both situations have brought me to set up this channeling to explore the issues of developing and distributing metaphysical technologies, while respecting the free will of those who might use such technologies. The first of three questions I have is, without reference to any particular technology, is it theoretically possible for metaphysical technology to be self-regulating? That is, could a technology be constructed so that the user would not receive any more metaphysical light than he or she was prepared to integrate? And if this is possible, does Quo see that any such self-regulating technologies are currently available on Earth? Carla channeling says, we are known to you as the principle of Quo. Greetings in the love and the light of the one infinite creator, in whose service we come to you this evening. We wish to thank the one known as D for creating a sacred circle of seeking, and we wish to thank those who have joined with the one known as D in this circle, the one known as R, the one known as M, the one known as G, the one known as Jim, and the instrument. We greatly appreciate the privilege of being asked for our opinion, as those who also seek the truth. As always, we would encourage who reads or hears these words to discriminate as you listen to what we have to say, feeling for the path of resonance. If ideas that we offer do not resonate to you, please leave them behind. This strict attention to your own temple gates will enable us to speak freely without being concerned that we may infringe on your free will or disturb the rhythm of your process. The query concerning the use of metaphysical technology to enhance the natural abilities of seekers is, as the one known as D is well aware, one with many layers and levels of consideration. However, the possibility of finding a self-regulatory feature is one which creates the environment for a potential positive gain in the one known as D's being of service to others. There is a delicate situation when we speak concerning an ongoing point of spiritual study. Each entity has not only incarnational lessons, but permutations of those lessons that are active at any one time, and we must tread carefully to avoid infringing upon the active processes that is ongoing with the spiritual seeking of the one known as D. So we offer some thoughts that may or may not have any interest to you, my brother. First, the nature of the energy that is used to open the gateway of intelligent infinity consists of three basic components. The will of the seeker, The infinite love light of the infinite creator, which, moving from logos to the heart, is then reflected up through the earth into the soles of the feet and into the energy body in an infinite supply. And third, there is that vast array of sources of aid and guidance that can be accessed for those who move through the gateway into intelligent infinity. In the normal course of seeking, the work of the seeker is first to clear his chakras so that the energy from the earth may flow in infinite supply into the opened heart, and then springboard up through the higher chakras, through the gateway of intelligent infinity, and then aimed with clear and lucid intent of the seeker, attract the appropriate source of guidance. The energy body is crystalline and delicate. Consequently, the energy of the infinite creator that comes up from the earth is geared to harmonize with the needs of the energy body. If this love light encounters a hindrance, it does not push or press, but merely awaits the clearing of whatever energy center or centers have been blocked or overactivated. This constitutes a built-in safety mechanism, if you will. It is in this regard that there is an interesting potential for further consideration by the one known as D. We cannot express through this instrument, who is not in any way an educated scientist, the nature of the contemplation that might prove productive, but can simply say that it is in understanding and being able to measure or identify, and otherwise work with this elemental love light of the one infinite creator, that the possibility barely exists within the technology of which you are aware, of creating your technology in such a way that it rides the love light energy and is consequently created safe because of the natural intelligence or love light energy which knows when it may go forward and when it may not. Where the discovery or integration of the present knowledge base from the study of light and the study of, we give this instrument pictures of a vast array of what look like computer readouts or languages to be wedded, then there would be the possibility of offering this regularizing and cohering technology in a way that would not interrupt the natural safeguards of the energy body. In another, they ask, Quo uses the phrase by any means other than natural in the second statement. Some might say there is nothing natural about Earth's current environment given technology such as HAARP, cell phone towers, the web, and alternating current engines that appear to restrict the natural flow of metaphysical life. I'm guessing that some members of the Confederation may see benefits in leveling the playing field on this planet by distributing technologies that counteract these restricting technologies. Is this true? And if it's possible that Quo's position on such gadgetry might be considered somewhat conservative by other members of the Confederation. We are those of Quo and are aware of your query. We are a principle made up of 3 social memory complexes, a 4th density social memory complex, which is known to you as Hatan, a 5th density social memory complex, which is known as Latui, and a 6th density social memory complex, which is known to you as Ra. Consequently, within our very principle, we carry the memory of just such an attempt to aid by technology of a kind, for we offered to those in Egypt, as you all know that area, the technology of sacred geometry, which is used in the building of the pyramid. We were hopeful that such a device for initiation and healing, the culture of that day, might be able to create a new paradigm of unity. We discovered that far from creating an effective instrument for healing, we created in the end, very shortly after this structure called the Great Pyramid by this instrument was completed, that the entities who were supposedly the priests of the Law of One were corrupted by politics and society, so that there was no initiation, nor was there healing, but that it was to be used only by the elite. We could offer other examples of the Confederation's experiments in offering technology to, as you say, my brother, leveling the playing field. Each of them was brought to the environment of your planet in a genuine and utter hope there would be aid from such devices. We need only mention the technology used to produce the atomic bomb to make our point. Within any confederation, my brother, there are those who remain hopeful that the next time and the next time such intervention might be a positive contribution to the spiritual evolution of humankind. And perhaps conservative would be an understatement. However, regardless of the opinion of some few who have not learned from experience, we remain serene in our realization that the way to aid humankind is not through outer technology, or any technology, but rather by the continual creation through instruments such as this one of a discussion of the true identity of all humankind. And in further discussion of how the creation works, we weave a story, my brother, through instruments such as this, a story that offers an explanation on several different levels for the life to which each human being has awakened, and for the larger natural philosophy in which this life has been embedded, the creation from beginning to end, and each human being's part in that great cycle or octave of creation. We weave a net of love, and it catches people. It helps them to get their feet under them and to realize who they are. The secret to spiritual evolution is that realization that each human being, just as he is capable of becoming a person of infinite power and focus. We hope always, in the communications that we offer through instruments such as this one, to enlarge that vision of the human being as a living flame, that moment where consciousness and consensus reality meet. Two worlds intersecting at each moment through the thoughts of the focused human being, encouraging that focus, encouraging the awareness that each is a portion of the Godhead principle and has not only the honor, but the duty to take up the responsibility of Godhead, is one of our most basic hopes from this web of communication which we have been able to offer through instruments such as this one. We believe our tactics have, through modest and conservative, indeed enlarged the possibility of each individual's acceleration of his mental and spiritual evolution. This instrument saw earlier this evening a Democracy Now! Interview with Utah Phillips. This entity known as Utah spoke of being patient and abiding in the belief system that gave him dignity and integrity. He spoke of finding it difficult to vote when there were no good choices in the elections and instead saying, "My ballot is on my back." As more and more people awaken to who they truly are and become aware of their magical personality and their ability to do work in consciousness, we believe that our discussions of the one great original thought have a small but contributing part, and we are content, my brother, to share word by word and concept by concept the one great original thought, to the exclusion of more attempts to level the playing field from the outside in. The magic of all entities in third density lies within them and is awakened by their realization that they are entities of power, and that this power is founded in, made up of, and completely melted and dissolved in love. The essence of this love, my brother, can be found in the love light, coming from the Logos and bouncing back from the heart of the earth, constitutes the energy that is fed to the energy body. It is this source of energy that we would encourage you to consider. We again apologize for being unable to create technical language through this instrument. However, hopeful the rhythms and emphases of that which have been able to share through her instrument may be of some help. Before leaving this question, we would wish to express our appreciation of the depth and the intensity of the love and the desire to serve of the one known as D. It is, my brother, a moving thing to see the beauty of your vibrations, and indeed may we say that this circle of seeking is unusual in its blended auras and its sacred space. In another question, they ask, Ra has stated that the term density refers to the degree that each level of all that is can pack or store metaphysical life. Does the human heart, when its bioelectric waveforms fall into phase coherence, model how our reality is more able to symmetrically and harmoniously pack metaphysical light as into the third and fourth density? If so, how could a metaphysical technology based on this same principle of phase coherence be most responsibly and effectively used to show individuals that their hearts have the same capacity as the universe at large for this phase shift? We are those of Quo, and we are aware of your query, my brother. We must take this query into two parts. First, we would speak of densities and light. The attempt to create fourth density light, fifth density, or sixth density light out of third density light is an attempt that is founded in a mistaken assumption, and that is that light has a linear progression from density to density. However, it does not. The photon of third density is not the photon of fourth density. Consequently, no matter how beautifully coherent you create third density light, you have simply maximized a third density light. You have not created a fourth density light. It would be like trying to make an apple into an orange. You can make the best apple, but you cannot make it into an orange. Fourth density light has more. We give this instrument a picture of angles of rotation, as if there were 90-degree shifts while in the same place, which creates an enormously expanded number of surfaces within each portion of light. More surfaces mean more places for information, more choices, more awareness. Secondly, we believe that there is a very good idea in that of which you speak, in that there is a good deal of power in the purity of colors available when a coherent light is used. There are, we believe, among your peoples healing modalities that already have begun to investigate the possibilities of using coherent light. They have moved in terms of their focus on physical healing rather than working into the consideration of working with light to create or enhance metaphysical environments. This work would not be an infringement upon free will, for the optical apparatus of entities is self-limiting, as are the physical senses in general, and overload simply removes the possibility of that modality being used rather than creating difficulties within the energy body, which could result in the overloading of one or more of the chakras. In another session in February of 2009, they ask, quote, "Is it possible to achieve a level of vibration with meditation to attract the help of a particular discarnate teacher, or is meditation a practice best worked on alone?" Carla says, while channeling, "We are those known to you as Quo. Greetings in the love and light of the one infinite creator. It is our particular pleasure to speak upon the subject of meditation, for this practice is the straight way to the acceleration of a seeker's rate of spiritual evolution. Meditation is seemingly a simple matter. The entity stops looking outward, stops responding to the outer environment, and even stops attending to his own thoughts as far as following those thoughts and analyzing their content or chewing through various processions of thoughts. In meditation, such thoughts are seen as noise rather than signal and allowed to rise and fall as they will without the mind of the meditator being activated. That would seem to be the entire activity of meditation, closing out the outer world, entering the inner world, leaving the world of words and voices and issues, and entering the world without voices, without words, and without issues. However, meditation is much more than entering the silence, for there can be a silence of mind, which simply indicates boredom. Silences within the space-time world may not offer anything except a quick exit into sleep. However, silence is a key that opens the door into time-space. Silence is the transit between the world of the mind and the world of consciousness. The mind of space-time is handy and useful for many things within your own outer world. It is not useful for becoming more aware of one's own deeper nature. It is not a good tool with which to investigate the world of spirit. People will often think of the mind and of consciousness as one and the same thing. However, we would differentiate between them. The mind is a space-time mechanism, whereas consciousness is a time-space phenomena. Now, as one goes into meditation, one is seeking to enter one's own consciousness. That consciousness dwells in undistorted form at the heart of your being. It is a faculty which you share with all other sentient beings upon planet Earth. Indeed, in its ultimate sense, it is that which is shared by all aspects of the universe whatsoever. For it is the consciousness that we would call the Logos, or the one original thought of love. This is the value of meditation, that it moves you from mind to consciousness, and from the surface of consciousness gradually deeper and deeper into the essence of the one great original thought of love. Further, when you are in meditation, you are vibrating in congruity with all others who have attained your particular present level of consciousness. Therefore, the state of consciousness is a powerful one, and it is that which becomes more and more powerful as one is able to allow the process of meditation to clarify and simplify that self-perception of consciousness. so that it gains more and more of the characteristics of that one great original thought of unconditional love. The goal of meditation then is to create the progressive increase of awareness of one's true nature as a being of love. It is an awareness or a complex of awareness that can be sustained to a degree when you open your eyes and come out of meditation and re-enter the noisy world of the everyday. When meditation is practiced regularly, the results begin to multiply. One may count among those results an even deeper awareness of the truth that is beyond words, an ever deeper appreciation of consciousness itself and of the nature of the Logos, and an ever wider and more tolerant perception of the illusory world of humankind in all of its aspects. It is perfectly acceptable to desire to have the benefit of the teachings of a discarnate entity within the environment of yoga, from which the one known as Paramahansa Yogananda sprung and flourished. It is quite orthodox and normal for a student who wishes such a discarnate teacher to request the teacher. The request may be repeated at a rising and going to one's sleep, and it is encouraged to keep a close watch upon one's dreams once one has set one's intentions and made this request. It is not within our purview to be able to assess for you, my sister, whether or not this shall be what you would call a successful request. We would be doing our learning for you, were you to opine in that regard. We may say that such connections are common in the world of yogic masters, and that it is a matter of the compatibility of teacher and student as to how successful this request is in producing a solid feeling of connection with the one known as Paramahansa. Again, judging between various ways of meditating, most especially whether it is more efficacious to work with a master or to work upon one's own, is not within our purview. There are reasons that opining on this would infringe upon your free will, and we feel that you are able to see how this may be so. However, we may offer you some thoughts about proceeding on your own. Firstly, we would suggest that using techniques in addition to the classic meditation of sitting in the silence and allowing one's focus to restrict itself to one's breath is sometimes helpful, although the basic following of one's breath and sitting in silence is the centerpiece of any meditation technique. Yet also, there are supportive meditation techniques that the meditator who is working on his own may find helpful. Aspects of meditation can be worked or looked at from several different techniques or ways of differentiating between various parts of the archetypal mind are available. Each of them has benefits, and in truth, it is up to the preferences of the meditator as to which type of archetypal meditation he would prefer. One way of moving into the archetypal mind is to consider the glyph called the Tree of Life. Meditating first upon the various aspects of the Creator placed within that glyph, going first down the center column, then down the feminine column, then down the masculine column. Once this had been done for a considerable length of time, considering first one, then another in different meditations, one could spend meditative times contemplating the relationships between them as demonstrated and articulated in that glyph. Another way of letting one's consciousness sink into the archetypal mind is to consider the 12 signs of the zodiac in astrology, and then the relationships between the various houses, and so forth. This, again, is a considerable body of assorted roads into the subconscious and into the roots of consciousness. Conducting such a series of contemplations would be a lengthy process. The third way, which we might recommend working to move one's consciousness deeper into the roots of consciousness, is to consider the 22 cards of the tarot and the relationships between them. Such a series of meditations may not at first seem useful. There may simply seem to be a mishmash of perceptions, none of them coming clear or clean. And indeed, one may spend literally years of your time moving through these contemplative meditations before there is an inner point at which the various meditative points come together within the subconscious to create a pattern within which one may see one's various concerns and ethical considerations. At that point, and only at that point, does it become that which feels useful. However, in our opinion, working with these periods of contemplation over a period of years will reliably result in the long run in a more clarified and seasoned web of consciousness, a consciousness that is more flexible and more responsive to the will of the meditator. We may say that in our opinion, there are times of the day which are especially efficacious to meditation. Two of those times are efficacious because of the waxing and waning of night energies and day energies. The time of the crossover from day to night and the crossover from night to day are times when the arena of the inner planes and of the world of nature as well is temporarily quiet. There is a characteristic hush of energies coming and energies going, a quiet sense of the changing of the guard, if you will, in terms of obtaining the most calm and peaceful outer atmosphere for one's own work in consciousness. The dawning and the gloaming are two efficacious times for entering the silence. However, the evening in your culture and in most entities' families' lives is a time of activity when there is virtually no opportunity to achieve a time of solitude and quiet contemplation. We would therefore recommend the hours between 5 and 7 in the morning, or alternatively, because of the way your peoples move time around to suit their need for daylight, those 2 hours before and after dawning, whenever they may be, are recommended as times for sitting in solitude and following the breath. It is often helpful in this practice to be sure that the body is upright and yet comfortable, and that it is completely warm so that there is not the pulling consideration of cold feet, cold fingers, or cold noses. This instrument has upon occasion wrapped a blanket about her shoulders and made a little cocoon for this practice, and this is certainly a good way to achieve that stasis of heat so that you are neither too hot nor too cold, and the body's senses are not being pulled away from following the breath in order to attend to discomfort. We do not recommend a supine or prone position for the reason of the ease with which it is possible to move into sleep from these positions. We recommend the upright spine. To support a life that has a meditative practice as one of its centers, it is well to tune the consciousness throughout the day in short bursts. It is well, for instance, to create a noon-hour moment of contemplation, whether it be 5 seconds or 5 minutes, for that is the height of the day's energies, and it is well to stop at the height and appreciate the deeper self. This is similarly true as the afternoon begins to turn to evening at perhaps 4 or 5 in the evening. It is well to stop to appreciate the fullness of the day's work. Again, at the supper time or thereafter at approximately 7, it is well to stop for a few seconds or a few moments to appreciate the energies of the incoming night. And then at bedtime, it is well to pause to look upon the day, to view the day in your mind and balance those things that you see as dwelling in imbalance before relinquishing consciousness for the night. We would also include for those times when it is desired to ramp up or intensify one's seeking the invaluable hour of about 3 or 3:30 in the morning, that time when the energies of the night are at their height. We do not, however, recommend tearing up your peace or destroying your rest in order to create the perfect practice. Play, my sister, with each of these ideas as you create your own practice. Remember as you do so that meditation is not a practice apart from living. Indeed, it could easily be said that the goal of a meditative practice and the supporting moments of remembrance throughout the day and evening is to reconfigure the mind, that it becomes easier and easier for the mind to dissolve into consciousness as a basic default setting for one's everyday life. It is well to have a slight tinge of meditative practice ongoing at every breath that you take. Such an access on a steady state to the deeper aspects of consciousness can indeed transform the life experience and certainly accelerate the path of spiritual evolution. They ask, quote, I have 3 points in which I need clarification. The first is by consciousness and focusing on the consciousness. Is that what is also called the method of awareness watching awareness? Quo says, there is a similarity betwixt those two ideas, my sister. The figure of awareness watching the awareness is a good description of how the mind or consciousness feels within meditation. For as the persistent and hectic thoughts of daylight mind and its choice-making characteristics pop up within the meditative state, there is that consciousness aware of consciousness that chooses not to be aware of the rising and falling of desultory thoughts. However, awareness conscious of awareness has within it the figure of the seeker, which is attempting to meditate. Whereas when we say consciousness, as opposed to the mind or mental activity of the brain, we are speaking of a consciousness that is the same for all, and that is also congruent with the logos, or the one original thought of unconditional love. If awareness is conscious of awareness, then that puts the individual solidly in the middle of that consciousness. So in the one figure there is the individual, in the other figure there is the inference that this consciousness is not only the consciousness of you as an individual, but also each and every other sentient being as an individual. There is one consciousness, and each individual finds entry into that consciousness. When you speak of lying in the supine position for meditation because one might fall asleep, is that because sleep is in some way bad or dangerous, or is it just that it is not a productive state of meditation? We suggest, Quo says, that one avoids sleep when in meditation for the simple reason that sleep ends the meditation. The sleep state or states, we should say, are in and of themselves useful, and we may speak upon those if you wish. However, the practice of meditation is only useful when the entity meditating remains conscious. For once one's consciousness is taken away, there is no will to meditate or a person who is meditating. That set of intentions and activities vanishes upon the outset of the sleep state. Another question, I think that was sufficient for that question, and the topic of sleep is best left to its own session at another time. So I'll ask the third of my three clarifications. When you talk about contemplating on the tarot, or zodiac, or the tree of life, does that not cause thoughts to arise? And if we are trying to ignore thought during the process of meditation, is this not counterproductive? Quo says, a contemplative meditation is not the same as pure meditation, and its value is far greater to some personality types than to others. However, the suggestion is based upon our awareness that the archetypal mind dwelling in the roots of consciousness is possessed of a sacred geometry and a characteristic division into great arteries of pure emotion, which have regularized relationships one to the other. A sense of increasing familiarity with and a comfort within these networks of great arteries and rivers of emotion gradually creates within an individual sophistication, a seasoning, a sure-footedness when in deeper states of meditation. You are quite accurate in perceiving that such contemplations do include thought. There will inevitably be those thought processes which start with one point of contemplation and move to inferences gained from that contemplation, to imagery systems which spring from such contemplation, and to the eventual putting together of various points within the discipline of looking at the archetypal mind which is chosen by the seeker. However, it is to be pointed out that these processes of thought tend to be direct insight, or what this instrument would call gnosis, rather than tending towards the use of analytical mind. If not analytical mind takes over for the faculty of direct insight, then you are quite accurate in seeing the practice of these contemplative meditations would be, to some extent, obviated. It is not the aim of such contemplations to activate the powers of analysis, but rather the powers of intuition, insight, and gnosis. In another session, they talk about the power of now when they ask, Quo, our question today concerns the eternal present moment. A human author urges us to access the power of now. He states that in the present, suffering cannot exist because suffering depends on time. We are told time and time again that time is an illusion, so that we would like to know what exactly is the power of now. How can we gain access to that power? How can we live more and more in the moment? How can we realize that we are creatures of the moment? What does the present moment look like to one that has discovered it? What results can be expected in a seeker who indeed has discovered the present moment? Carla channeling Quo says, you ask this evening concerning the present moment, the now, and how it may be discovered, recognized, entered, enjoyed, appreciated, and above all, perhaps, how it may be learned to in order to speak about this interesting subject. We would begin with some thoughts regarding time itself. The illusion of time is that which allows your experience to occur within your being. Without the illusion of time and space, without the structure that the Creator has built for your particular body, mind, and spirit to dwell in, you would not be able to process catalyst into experience. You would indeed not have catalyst. You would simply be. This is in fact your true state. You are, period. It is not that you are a human or that you are a soul, or that you are any quality or condition. You are a part of all that is. You are an isness. It is very difficult for us to express this concept through words, but beneath all movement, you already and eternally are. Since that sounds like such a delightful state, one wonders perhaps why the Creator would indeed create a house, such as the universe which you enjoy, which is nothing but an illusion or a system of illusions that are interpenetrating. The reason is that about which we are speaking recently, that first distortion of free will. The Creator chose to know itself, and in order to know itself, it created with love and with light, a creation in which entities could examine whatever of the material of their essence or isness that they wish to examine, against a backdrop that seemed plausible and solid, so that there would be a believable, self-correcting consensus reality dream in which all of those within a planetary system such as yours could take part and help each other to learn more about that entity which all of you are, or which each of you is. For again, this is difficult to say. Well, each of you is utterly unique, and at the same time, each of you is a part of one energy system, which is the Creator. You are in the process of learning from your inner self with the help of your outer or other selves. The world, then, may be seen as a dream, as a kingdom, or as a prison. But certainly, your physical world, though an illusion, is quite solid, quite substantial, and quite believable. Without time, you would not be able to have the experience of consecutivity. You would not be born, live and die. Rather, you would exist in a being born, dying, and everything in between state, all in a big soup. The desire of the Creator was that hope of becoming a fuller, more richly realized beingness. There was a dedication of the principle of Godhead to an examination of self, a celebration of self, and a learning about self. Each of you, then, is a spark of that Creator who has chosen at this time to come into this particular environment of what this instrument calls third density, to live in incarnation amongst others of your kind, being mirrors for others, to reflect to them that truth which they offer you, seeing the mirrors of others that reflect the truth of you back to yourself. And through all the mazes and mirrors, beginning to come to a competency of understanding regarding the nature of the illusion that allows you as a spirit who is seeking the truth to penetrate more and more of that which is not the essence of self, so that more and more you are able to take life lightly, to remove from the self the feeling of prison, and to replace that with the feeling of the dream or of the kingdom. There are many ways to lose that feeling of being a slave to time or being imprisoned within time and space. We certainly recommend meditation, as always, but there are many ways to shake the trammels of the noonday thoughts and chores and business in order to lift up from that mental narrowness of thought that does not remember who you are or why you are here. It is very easy to be caught up in the never-ending series of lists, as the one known as T1 was seeing, the doing of things on a daily basis, as the one known as Jim was saying to this instrument earlier, the never-ending mountain of chores to be done and duties to be fulfilled. How easy it is to become completely convinced that these are the building blocks of a complete existence, yet in and of themselves, there is no real substance or meaning in these things. There is simply that structure which allows experience. Without further seeking, then, the world may seem a kind of prison, where the sentence is life and the eventual sentence is death. One cannot escape the life except by the door of death, and when one escapes by that door, as far as those remaining can see, that entity has become nothing. Dust has returned to dust, and the cycle of life and death is completed. And so for the first cycle of seeking, shall we say, there is that tendency for the new seeker to begin to feel that life is a dream. There is that realization that these seemingly solid building blocks of chores and days and seasons are not substantial. And there is a tremendous feeling of relief and freedom, of the lifting up from having to take the work time, the chore time, the time of duties too seriously. Within one of your philosophical distortions, there is that phrase, first there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. The time of experiencing life as a dream within a dream is that time when there is no mountain. It is a time when sudden realizations and new information may create tremendous excitement within the self, and a time when the dark night of the soul can plunge one into the abyss of the deepest sorrow and grief, and yet always with the feeling that one is actually a spirit rather than a body, and that one is experiencing a dream, and that nothing is terribly important. It is a precious time in many ways, and much good comes from the seeking that is done during this time. Beyond that time, there comes a time of reintegration, the dream and prison coming together to form a new picture, which is that of the kingdom, a realm, a magical place. We find that there is where many of you within this circle are attempting to live at this time, and we commend you for having moved along the path of seeking through so many bends and curves and difficulties in the road that your spiritual maturity has begun to allow you to see the riches of the illusion, the tremendous richness of the environment that has been provided for this school of life that you experience during this incarnation. It is a time when the bitterness begins to dissolve. There's no longer anger at having to work for a living or feed the body or cleanse the body or take off the environment that one has chosen. The prison door is open because there is a freedom to see the blessing of everything. There is no need to justify suffering and duty and all of the unpleasantness of life, because it is finally seen not as that which limits and narrows the light, not as that which may be attended to but not taken seriously, but that which has been given as a tremendous gift, each moment coming fresh from the Creator. This is the time of kingdom. That is the time of Jubilee, and it is truly the first place, shall we say, within the mind from which a point of view may be taken that has great depth, so that you may survive those realizations which shall come when you have become unafraid of the prison and unafraid of the dream. Most entities among your peoples live a kind of inner life that we would describe as horizontal. The world of things spreads out like the skyline, full of detail, and it is that within which one lives. One drives the streets, one walks the sidewalks, one moves horizontally along the face of the planet. To all illusory intents and purposes, it's a flat existence. If that horizontal life were called the x-axis, then the world of spirit could be seen as the y-axis, the vertical life. Imagine standing upon the ground, seeing the physical eyes that it extends flat in each direction horizontally, as far as the eye can see. The feet meet the ground in just so and so a place. There is a contact between the soles of the feet and the ground, and that thin meeting place represents the depth of reality. But imagine suddenly realizing that precisely where the sole of the foot meets the ground, there is an infinite opening upwards and downwards, upwards into the world of ideals, guidance, Godhead, downward into the ground of being. It is as though chasms open beneath you and above you, and suddenly you are not standing upon a thin slab of ground, but upon the razor's edge, in intersection with eternity and infinity. This is in fact your situation. You are in the position of being able to live both a life in space-time, the horizontal life, and a life in time-space, the vertical life, simultaneously. We might say that the ability to remember this image, the ability to remember that which is unseen, that which opens to the Creator and to the essential self, is a measure of how well you are doing with the simple act of remembrance that is the key in many ways to progressing in spiritual, mental, and physical evolution of self. How to remember that you see is not at all what you get. How to remember the intersection with wonder and magic and infinite possibility. This instrument pursues a daily and weekly spiritual or religious program which includes group worship within that distortion of spirituality called Christian. This is one way in which she attempts to be a creature of remembrance. There are many ways to be remembering who you are and why you're here. That is one way. The simple act of setting aside time, such as you have this day to seek together, no matter how the meditation goes, no matter how you feel that you've been as a part of seeking circle, the intention, the dedication of time are the things that create the feeling of remembering and honoring the portion of yourself that is living that vertical life. In moments such as this, as you allow the energy to move around the circle, we feel sure that each of you has that riveted feeling of opening to the infinite possibilities of the moment. But there are, as the one known as T2 said, so many different ways of coming into a state of remembrance. Each of you has 5 senses in the physical. The example that one known as T2 gave of washing the hands and becoming aware of each characteristic and nuance of feeling in that experience operates on the principle of using the gifts that are given to you. Each sense is evocative. Each sensibility may be triggered, tuned, and even transformed by choosing to be alert, to be watchful, to be attentive, to pay attention to the little things. This instrument is fond of saying the smaller the thing, the more common and everyday, the more sacred it seems to her. And while we find everything equally sacred, we understand what this instrument is attempting to express. Consider the act of washing the hands, of emptying the bowels and rising from the natural function to wash the hands and to go forth to meet the day. It must be done every day, perhaps more than once, but certainly in the morning. For each of you, this is a life sentence of natural function that must be attended to for the sake of the body. But that is a heavy energy, that is a grudging life when one has to perform natural functions. However, if one enters into those natural functions and the natural ways of cleanliness and preparing into the day with every sense awake, each humble, necessary chore can become a symbol in the physical of processes which are moving on within the inner being. Processes that move from nuance to nuance and half tone to half tint, and the ability to enter into the joy of removing the old from the system and clearing it out for the day, and then rising and washing the hands and blessing that event, experiencing that magical flow of water as it cleanses, experiencing all the feelings that are attendant upon the cleansing, the pleasant smell, the texture of soap, the texture of the towel, attending to each of these to see the beauty in them, softens and gentles the harsh edges of necessity into things of unutterable beauty. And as each tiny thing begins to open to that view, the sacredness of things emerge and lift up into the glory of the illusion of incarnation. Each moment is a bounty, a feast, a banquet. It is brimming with information. It is whole and perfect and one. The one way to come into that sense of consciousness is to learn the attentiveness to sacredness of everyday things. Within a sacred space, with altars and pews and vaulted ceilings and stained glass windows, it is easy to feel that one is in a sacred place. Yet every child of dust within the illusion of earth stands on holy ground. Whether they are starving or fed, whether they are cold or clothed, whether they are sick or healthy, no matter what state or condition they may be in, they stand upon holy ground, and they themselves are holy. And you, child of dust, are also infinitely, ineffably holy. You are a sacred essence of the divine. How may one begin to experience this point of view? In some ways, it becomes a matter of sheer discipline. There's a certain amount of what this instrument would call struggle involved in training the mind to come into a state of remembrance. There is much help which is available to those who wish to become present, and it is indeed a noble task to set for the self to become present. It is not that one wishes to be without a context. We do not call you away from the world. We do not look down upon any part of the life lived by the ordinary human being. We do not suggest the need for a retreat and alteration of the outer circumstances. Certainly, times of quiet, such as the one as T1 has described, are extraordinarily helpful. When there is this sabbatical, there is the opportunity to take stock, to express the self as a seeking entity rather than the one who must attend to the ordinary challenges of making a living and coping with the financial side of life. And yet life, is the most part, is lived in the hurly-burly, in the spotlight of the passion. As the scenes upon the stage revolve, we give this instrument a view of a complete lack of location. Picture, if you would, the sensation of weightlessness, of lack of input into any of the senses. Lifted from the constant contact with the senses, one is left within a kingdom which is within. Within that inner kingdom of self lies the truth and a great deal of distortion. Where did this distortion come from? An entity is born into incarnation with certain preconceived distortions already. Each of you has chosen a personality shell that is rich in gifts and in challenges. Each of you has scripted for yourself incarnational lessons which will occur thematically repeatedly during incarnation, teaching you the lessons that you have chosen and offering you the opportunities of service which you have hoped for. In this inner life, no mirrors exist, and it is exponentially more difficult to see the self clearly than when one is receiving information from the mirrors around one. So while we value time spent in a completely inner search, we feel that the more efficient path in terms of the rapidness with which evolution may occur is an environment in which the inner life and the outer life marry, rather than fighting and dividing inner life from outer life and struggling to get more inner life. We would suggest every way which you may think of personally to stamp the outer with the inner and to relate the inner into the outer, making every connection that you can so that all of experience becomes one and the physical and metaphysical becomes a dance for two that carries both the male and female aspect of living within one consciousness. By male and female aspects of living, we are in our distortion, suggesting that the outer or horizontal life is masculine or yang, as this instrument would say in its activity, it's reaching its power to do, whereas that inner vertical life is as the potentiator, that which awaits the reaching, that which does not have the form but which is productive of all form, that which may be called guidance or inspiration or infinity or eternity, to allow the infinite and the eternal to become a part of the passing scene, and to allow the passing scene to become stamped with infinity and eternity, is to make that marriage within the life of those aspects which otherwise might fight for dominance. We assure you it is not at all easy to do this. It is much easier to compartmentalize and to do the spiritual practice and to move into the daily mode and then back into a spiritual practice and back into the daily mode. Yet we may say the fewer transitions that you must choose to make, the more often that you are able to blend the inner and the outer being, the more substantial will be your stance, and your point of view will benefit from this unification of inner and outer living. What is the essence of you? That is the question, you see. And the answer is so simple. You are. You are not creating yourself. You are simply discovering that self that is there. You do not choose from nothing. You came into this incarnation a very real citizen of eternity. You are simply peeling away layers of distortion to see yourself clear and clear, to have a deeper and deeper sense of your own essence. It is a fascinating journey, and we are so glad to have you as companions upon it. And so that is a collection of some different channelings from Quo, and they're all amazing. The discussion of the present moment is beautiful in the way it's described, and it's a great reminder of the power of the present moment and understanding how time works, which is, of course, very fascinating. There's so much that we can pull from this. The beginning part is interesting. I'm really wondering what that metaphysical technology that they were discussing is and what exactly they were proposing. But I think we kind of have that with heart coherence technologies, people coordinating their heart and mind and going into a certain phase. It could have the potential to increase light. Now, there is a profound question at the beginning of this, and that is, anything that moves you along the path faster seems to have some negative repercussion. I couldn't quite understand that, and it was a really good question. Meaning, if you, through magic or some technology or perhaps psychedelics of some kind, it pushes you to a higher level of understanding, you're not prepared for it. It should be natural. I don't know if that's true or not, but I find that interesting. So in any case, there's a lot of cool stuff to pull from here. I'd love to get what your favorites were. Please put them in the comments. Put a like on this video. Tell your friends about Quo. Tell your friends about love. We need to come together and have a greater understanding of these principles. And Quo's explanation of meditation is spot on perfect. The discussion in the meditation section of the archetypes, I promise I will further explore in future meditations. Simply looking at the tarot and understanding what the different archetypes are and how they are connected to the tree of life could be an amazing meditation, and we'll certainly explore it. But I want to know what you think about the meditation discussion, power of now, all that stuff. Let me know. In any case, all episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. Welcome to The Reality Revolution.